Yes, you are live.
And we are, yes, we have our first, second, third, fourth. Oh, good. Is that working?
Yes, it appears to be working. I know you can see a picture of Finn, which is probably a really, really good thing.
That is really good. I'm just checking everyone just coming in. We're just going to take 2 seconds just to check. Yes, it's come onto Twitter. That's amazing. So it has come onto Twitter. So I'm very pleased about that. I'm just, whether I can just go on Finn's, this is the first time, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are using StreamYard, which is a software system that allows us to speak with David there, who's a dog. And that is Finn. Finn is dressed up for the occasion in his bow tie, looking absolutely gorgeous. And I know right now there's no one looking at my half of the screen. It's really good to see. Yeah, good. Right. Now I see you have appeared on Facebook.
We are, yes. On Facebook, we're on.
So that's really good. The only thing I would like to do, if possible, is I'm going to share the Facebook one onto my website. Dave, what's going on, mate?
I've just Finn's on screen because I got told off quite rightly last week for Finn not appearing anywhere near enough. So he's on screen until he gets fed up and decides to go elsewhere or find somebody doing something far more interesting than what we're doing.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm going to share now. So I'm sharing now. So if that doesn't share on my Facebook, then so be it. I'm just trying to build Facebook up a little bit. But welcome, everyone, and welcome to 164 people already, Dave. In future.
I wonder whether, because now I know lockdown's not over, but obviously lots of restrictions. I just wondered whether you and I would be talking to each other this week, or whether it would just be an empty space there and I'd be talking to myself.
That'd be all right. I'd always just talk to you, Dave.
You just put a cardboard cutout there so I can pretend to talk to you.
So welcome. Just to let everyone know, this all started because Dave and I just had a bit of a chat, and then a few people listened in, and it was very confined to Twitter because it was the format that really worked the best at the time. And we started digging into other things, and now we can it's on Periscope, Twitter, it's on Facebook. We will link them later on to YouTube. We have to pay copious amounts of money to link them all together. With 5 things at once, but we're doing all right with the lesser amount of money. And then there's going to be, oh my God, just the cheek, just because we're not quite fed up with ourselves yet. We're doing what's it called, a podcast. So if our new hashtag and our new name is Finn and Firearms. Finn and Firearms. I need to put that on a tab. And that will be, if you search Spotify or whatever podcast systems you use, you will get this as a recording afterwards. That is it. That's the advertising. Thank you so much indeed.
Somebody just said they loved my mug. Yeah, it's a picture of Finn, obviously.
Yeah, not your mug then. The mug you're drinking.
No, not my mug. So the dogs are playing in the background. Which reminds me of our friend was on Britain's Got Talent last week, and they did a live interview on the Monday morning, and she said literally when ITV pressed live, her dogs literally just bounced around her living room, throwing cushions in the air, and it made absolutely great TV. So if anybody saw that, it was wonderful. You can follow them, can't you? Amanda and Miracle, they are on social media. Brilliant. So hello everybody. Just a couple of shout outs before we start with the sort of main body. There was a police officer in Hertfordshire who was involved in a very serious accident this week. So I send my thoughts out to him and his family. We saw some amazing police work on social media again this week. A particular shout out to James Briggs and his colleagues from Greater Manchester Police for pulling an unresponsive male out of the river. There's a new police dog account. It's only on Twitter at the moment, and that's Warwickshire Police Dogs. They're called @Warks Police Dogs. So give them a follow, and A new book by our friend John Sullivan. John Sutherland, called Crossing the Line. That was published on Thursday, so get on Amazon and grab his book. But just before we carry on, I saw a lovely news article. So here comes the news. Did you hear about the Dorset biscuit eating competition, Harry?
A Dorset what?
The Dorset biscuit eating competition. If you haven't heard of it, just listen. It's hilarious. So the biscuit is called a Dorset knob.
The Dorset knob?
The Dorset knob. It's 150 years old, and that's not the biscuit. That's the brand of biscuit. And there was the Dorset biscuit eating competition this week. It's in its 12th year, and they had entries from as far away as Cockermouth.
Oh, yeah.
This year's winner was Kate Scott from Shaftesbury. Can't make this stuff up. And she necked 8.5 knobs.
She was what? Her surname was Shaftesbury.
No, she's from Shaftesbury.
Oh, right, okay.
But if you get a chance to read that story online, I thoroughly recommend it. It's a BBC article. It's absolutely hilarious. It's written, and it will have you in stitches. It's absolutely. But I promise you, it's a proper competition called the Dorset Biscuit Eating Competition, where they eat Dorset knobs.
Fantastic, love it.
Arthur, come back, and you'll see Finn.
Do you know what? I don't know if he recognises dogs on TV. Can you see Finn there? Can you see Finn? I think he's looking. He is looking at Finn.
Finn's
Arthur would be confused for Finn if he was in a field with no other sort of to put him with proportion. So he'd look like a German Shepherd in the distance, which in theory is far useful, because if I teach him now to be an attack dog, because as you can see he's really ferocious and angry, but he would be a lot nearer to you than you thought he was, and he would have you by the kneecap and he wouldn't let go, I'll tell you.
He'd be vicious, I'm sure.
Yeah, he is. But anyway, he's asking for riders now. He's a diva, that dog. I've used him for my seatbelt campaigns and drink drive campaigns, but no, good. Right, what were you going to talk about today?
There was a couple of things, wasn't there? Depends if anybody's listening. So we were going to talk about favourite shifts and what coronavirus has done to crime and policing. Yeah,
exactly. Well, you've got 173 people listening, so that's always a little bit frightening, isn't it?
Again, because it's obviously Finn and Arthur that are pulling. It's obviously Finn and Arthur that are pulling in the followers.
So basically, without a doubt for me, favourite shift was a late turn. That's a 2 to midnight or a 4 till 2. That was really good sharking territory. Just for those people who are not aware, I retired from 30 years policing on armed response and traffic, dual rolled in Devon and Cornwall, about, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago? All I know is I haven't had to get up really early or stay up really late recently. Dave is he's the hero. He's a very active dog handler. You're in a Triforce, aren't you? What would you describe your force? Where are you?
So we're Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire, and Hertfordshire. My actual force is Hertfordshire, but we're in what do you call it? A collaboration, which works well for certain aspects. That's for sure, for training and stuff like that. So
I mean, I get little messages from Dave, and in Devon and Cornwall, sometimes we have someone who swears or something like that, or eats an ice cream in the wrong way or something, or if you're in Devon and you put cream on top, that's bad. But if you're in Cornwall and you put cream on top, well, they will throw you out the county.
Well, I think there was a fantastic job. I can't remember what it was, but there was a fantastic job in Plymouth, I think, yesterday, day before. They did an awesome stop. I'm assuming it was traffic did a very good stop, and
I saw that.
The dog unit were there as well, and they found
when the drugs exploded in the cab.
Yeah.
He had a massive bag of cocaine.
Threw it out the window.
Yeah, threw it out the window. So it was like a scene from Snow White inside. If you were driving by at that time, The 3D events. Way! I've just given you all a defense for that. I think better now you're retired is the question. We will get onto the topic. This is the problem. And thank you so much for people who've read my book recently. I'm not going to plug it too much, but there it is, Firearms and Fatals. It's gone horrendously well. I'm so embarrassed by it. It's really, really grateful to you guys. And if you want an equally and sometimes even better book, that is Fabulous Finn as well. Top drawer, and that's from our Dave there. But going back to the point is, Dave, you come back. We have these we have the odd really serious offence, obviously, because everyone comes down the motorway and stuff, and you are full on that. Those dogs of yours, the drug searching, weapon searches, they find money, drugs, weapons, and then you've got Hero that tracks people and whatever as the standard GP dog, so to speak. It's not firearms yet, is he? Firearms?
No, she's not. No. But her brother is. We did do an assessment for it last year or the year before, but I think the course was cancelled or something. I don't know. But Finn was firearms support nearly his whole career. So we've been there, seen it, done it, and we do help firearms teams out with all their jobs. They up here, I'm sure down there and elsewhere in the country, they expect a dog at a firearms job. So we do go along and help them, and they're a fantastic team as well. But what I was going to say, just quickly before my bit, we've got loads of police officers watching, so thank you very much for joining us. If you've got any questions or if you want to tell us what your favourite shift is, then do give. Mine is nights. As Finn jumps up on the kitchen counter to see what's for dinner, very happy with the message I've got there. Yeah, he is number one at finding food, that's for sure. Night shift for me, and I think probably most dog teams, certainly, all my colleagues on my team, we prefer nights. That's not to say that days aren't busy, because they are. Yesterday was busy, today wasn't quite so much. But nights is when we come into our own. That's when we're, jumping through back gardens, not for any reason, just because we quite fancy it. And we only do on our dog section at BCH. We only do an early shift or a night shift. Is any. I mean, you're full on. You've had pursuits. You've had, you've tagged on to the back of pursuits to really successful, high value money weapons. I mean, this is week after week with Dave. It's phenomenal. Really, I'll tell you what, and this comes on to our next point. Careful how I word this. The quality of the work since COVID, since Corona, has gone through the roof. And I've got a theory, and we've chatted this through. I think that well done, Presty. Hope you enjoy it, mate. I think you've stolen my photo there, Dave. That's me. Yeah, he's definitely stolen your picture there. You need to have a lot. But I can't remember what I was going to say now. I've been completely blindsided by that hunky man on the Oh yes, that was it. The quality of the job. So, and we've got a theory on this, and we've chatted it through in that because police officers, the general volume of crime has come down. So it means police officers are not getting tied up with some of the, shoplifting and some of the lower level stuff, which means they're actually out there hunting. Like I remember we used to, when I first joined 17 and a bit years ago. And so they're putting up these cars and these criminals, and the quality of work seems to be. So you're not just reacting. You're now going. Yeah. You've got your suspects. What you have is basically we go briefing. Well, I used to do briefing and go through all that, and you've got all the miscreants, and most of them already. And then you go, right, I'm gonna if it's the Q word today, I'm gonna go for that, and we'll see what they're doing. And that's what you're doing. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, and all the cops are out there, and they've got time to listen to keep an eye on the ANPR automatic number plate recognition stack, so they can see the stolens coming through. They can see the cars with markers on, and they've got time to sit and wait for them to come back past again. So the standard of stops has gone up. So I think there's going to be lots of learning to come from this. But that's you talk about the results that my dogs have had, but most of those come because police officers are putting the stops in or attempting to put the stops in, and then the specialist units can come and back them up and help them to finish the job.
Get all the glory.
Yeah, no. If I stopped, so I mean, I had a great boss when I first started on the dog unit, and he said, "Your job is to go and back someone up at their job. So if you get a result, it's their result. So if I find a burglar in a bush that someone's put up, it's I always let the Bobby have the arrest because I don't get measured up.
There's a massive advantage to that as well, isn't there?
Yeah, it means I don't have to go to custody for 6 hours."
And you don't have to do the paperwork, which is fantastic. But
I wouldn't have a clue. I haven't done that side of the job for 11 years now, so I don't really know what happens in custody anymore.
I mean, a lot of metropolitan forces, or all the main cities, and the armed response there, and were armed response. They didn't do anything else because they were busy enough doing that. Whereas Devon and Cornwall, we have a lighter level of armed crime. We get a fair amount, and we have an awful lot of nasty people with knives and stuff. And acid was coming out. It seems to be a little less now. So we dual role. So yeah, I'd often find myself in just going to anything and everything. And so I'd be, but I was very aware that I had to admit that I didn't. Right, this is 5 weeks has gone, so the system's changed with this sort of thing, and I needed help. So I'd go to anyone and say, "How do you do this then?" And they're just amazed that I haven't just delegated the job to them as the sergeant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, you and I, we have very specialist roles, and we had to know our stuff, really, really well, and lots of training and blah 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 blah. But the officers that are in LPCs, local policing teams, they have to know so much.
Yeah.
How to do everything, and I remember my time there and how busy and how stressful it was. So I do take my hat off to them, and I certainly don't take advantage of them. But there's nothing they enjoy more, I can assure you, than my dog or my colleagues' dogs coming along and hoiking a burglar out of the bush or finding a drug dealer's stack. So, it is very much teamwork. I couldn't do my job without them, and hopefully they see the value in us to help them do their job.
And I mean, that's it, isn't it? It's the reward. The reward from, we would get. I remember there was a really nasty acid attack some time ago in Devon, and the person was permanently blinded by it. And I remember I had guys who are particularly good at looking at all the intel, and so we were looking for associates as possible vehicles, and you're just tying all this stuff together. And we actually went as armed response jobs to 2 or 3 houses, and we were really getting to the end of the night, and it was like, right, we'll leave it. There's nothing more. And then one of the guys said, it's a long shot, but it's a friend of a friend, and they live nearby. So we took the 4 armed response unit up there, and there was the car, and it was in the mutual car park. So we just contained it. They didn't want to open the door, so we put the door in, and we found in the wardrobe in the bedroom a bottle of Lucozade with a tub of acid next to it. So they've been using that. So it was beautiful job. And that's when it's really worthwhile. It's just fantastic. But my best shift late. You say nights for productivity. Then you're saying, really?
Yeah.
You don't do the 3 shifts like you're saying, but earlies. Oh, I hate earlies. It was that 5:30 alarm for me. It's earlier for a lot of people who live elsewhere who commute more. Oh, that hurt, mate.
Mine. I'm on early today and yesterday, so it was a 4:30 alarm clock, which not only do I not like, but Gemma doesn't like either because she gets woken up by it. I'm lucky in that the only person I have to speak to at that time of day is my dogs. But I don't do well. Yesterday it was literally straight in the van, straight to a warrant where Pearl had a nice result. And then it was literally job after job after job after job. And I managed to squeeze in some training as well. This morning was probably worse because there was no jobs to begin with. And it's getting up at 7 and then nothing.
You need mornings like that to get rid of paperwork if you get paperwork, Dave. That's the time when a lot of cops get rid of their stuff that has been kept. And the emails. I mean, if I was away for 3 days, I'd probably have about 95 emails. This will probably echo with many people in whatever job you do. And e-learning, oh my God, that was the one.
No.
Yeah.
The things I could say, and I'm sure the cops that are watching that could say about e-learning is, for anybody who's not in the job, we have something called NCAT. What does it stand for?
Oh yeah, national.
Yeah, national something.
Computer loads of cack.
Learning, computer learning something or other. But anyway, anybody who's had dealings with it will know how frustrating it is. And we had to do a whole raft recently where I think they're all slightly different, but the crossover on all of them was you were just covering the same thing, and each one took half an hour, 45 minutes, and there was 7 of them to do or something.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I won't repeat it then, because I think I told you last time I was doing the e-learning on health and safety about how to sit correctly at a seat. Your elbows like this.
Oh yeah, sorry.
And then I had to go out. To that girl who was threatening to jump off a bridge, and I remember distinctly thinking I must get back to that e-learning because the train, the Intercity 125, missed me by about that much, I think. But literally, I'd made some ground, and I knew I was okay because the rails are there and whatever. But I knew it was going to be a bit of a breathe-in job, and I thought if she goes in front of the train, I would be near enough to sort of grab her and yeah. So I remember thinking, well, there's irony for you, and I thought, well, now I've got to learn how to sit at a seat properly. But there we go. Somebody.
So yeah, I've got a video actually that I'll share, and I'm certainly not encouraging anybody to go anywhere near the railway because it's a very dangerous place. But we were asked to search for, I think he was a burglar or a wanted male or something, and he'd gone onto the railway line, and we had to wait for what they're called, Network Rail. We had to wait for BTP, and it's the main line from King's Cross up north. So the 2 central rails are the Intercity and the 2 outside are the local. So they'd put the rail next to us on 10 miles an hour, and they'd slowed the Intercity down from 100 or whatever they do to 80. Thanks for that. And then we were asked to see if Hero could find a track, and she did. She tracked beautifully with these trains steaming past at sort of 80, 90 miles an hour. And eventually the track then turned and went across the track, and at that point Network Rail said you can't go. So
yeah,
it's not a fun place. It's a very, very dangerous place to work. But yeah, it's an incredible video of Hero tracking with Intercity trains whizzing past us. But
yeah.
Nighttime, if they switch electricity off and they give us permission, then we can go on
So
the line.
Okay, but do you right? So the electricity's off, you're told. And do you just go like,
yeah?
Do you test it?
Get the newbie to go and touch the
or Dave, do you put your most unpopular dog on first, and then?
Oh, you're going to get crucified for that one, Harry. There's been a couple of questions. Do we help Thames Valley? Yes, sometimes we help Thames Valley. Sometimes we have some of their puppies. We border Thames Valley, so quite often there's jobs that go backwards and forwards. What else did I see up there?
Wrong one.
Yeah, someone put the answer to NCAT, but I've lost it now.
Yeah, it's because I'm not doing my job.
Computer-assisted learning, but I'm not sure how much learning.
Yeah, I think it covers a lot of backs, really. And I know that there was some people paid, allegedly paid the PCSO or the cleaner to do their NCAT trainer for them. Shocking. That's just awful.
But it used to be that you could just press next and it was fine. But then they realised people were doing that, and then there was one where if you just press next quickly, it got to the end, and then they realised that, and now warning flashes up and says you're doing this too fast. So
yeah. Oh, look. So I'm being told off by. No, that's the wrong one. Here we go. See, that was a negligent discharge. I clicked on the wrong one there. No, that's true. That is very true. And you're speaking to the right people here. We do know that.
The claws are out now, Harry. You dared say something nasty about a dog. You can't do that.
I know. Well, yeah. So they do shut the railway lines. I commandeered a train once, actually. I was in Torquay. Yeah, it said, can you, this was like I was 4 years in or whatever. It said, could you attend this embankment area where there's some 3-year-olds playing football on the track? and you couldn't get a road down there or whatever. So I went to Torquay, the railway station, and the train came in, and I said to the railway driver, the railway train driver, I said, have you seen some kids up there? So I wasn't, no. I said, I need to get up there. And they went, do you want me to take you? You can do this in Devon. He went back the other way. So he spoke to someone. I went, Victor for Foxtrot 30, I'm on the train and I'm making my way to the location. And they went, I'm sorry, did you say you're on the train? My ambition, and I commandeered a bus once.
Oh my goodness.
My ambition was to commandeer a fishing boat, but I didn't get to that. These are the things.
Just a quick hi to Dean Butterfield, who's a police cadet. So I thought I'd just say hi.
Yeah.
Commandeered a train. They used to have a police train, didn't they? You used to see it when you went past Rugby. I think it used to be parked up at. I don't know if you used it. I don't know if there was officers trained to drive it, but it was a big old diesel locomotive that had the jam, the jam sandwich police signage on it, and with the words police. So they used to have a train.
Jim's mentioned what are your views on Taser and all the negative press on it, and how do you deal with negative press? I tell you what. If they're too negative and the complaints come in too much and Taser is restricted, more people will die without a shadow of a doubt. So obviously each case where somebody is harmed or injured, then it has to be looked at, because there's certain things like with the training, you've just got to make sure that where you do it is relatively safe. But ultimately, reasonable force is if someone has got a knife and I haven't got a gun, because you don't take a knife to a gunfight, and and also, I'm not Zorro. I'm not going to with a knife. But ultimately, you would just taser before, and no warnings are needed, etc., etc. You're in danger. Why should the officer give the benefit of the doubt to the other person? So there is that, and so I'm not going to refer to specifics because there's accusations of whether the location was correct and whatever. But just be careful. Taser is completely harmless as far as injuries is concerned. If you've got a heart condition, I suggest you don't fight or be aggressive to police. Is always a good idea, because the police will not run checks with your doctor first before assessing whether they're going to taser someone to prevent themselves getting badly injured. And cops are meant to be working till they're 60. So before their pension. So do you expect cops to be fighting at 55 and get into a rough and tumble with someone twice their size who is shouting, "On, get up," at them? They have to deal with that every day? No. So Taser, really good. Immense pain. No guarantee it will work at all times. There's certain conditions. Immense pain. And if you are certain distances, good enough spread, then they will fall and you can walk up to them and take the knife away. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Alternatives for firearms officers are probably a sidearm. So if someone had a knife, but I say the aggression, no. Why should it be a man fight? Why should it be macho fight between cop? Because that yob only has to fight now and then, and the cops have to pretty much deal with aggression every day. So that's my view, Dave. What's your view, Dave?
Yeah, I agree. There's a story there by Pete Thomas. Put that up. That's quite funny, actually. Put that up, and then I'll give you my my opinion. Yeah, again, it's a fantastic piece of equipment. Some of my dog handler colleagues have got a taser, and I think if you take that option away, you're left with either the officer getting a beating or a much higher level of force from us, which we will then be criticised for. So, yeah, in our job, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think Taser has its place, but I think officers need to be careful because it isn't the be-all and end-all, but it certainly is a great bit of kit. So I'm with you on that one. Yeah.
Any advice for an old 38-year-old? Don't know what that makes us, Dave. You're 38 soon, aren't you?
I nearly.
Yeah. Treat ship in 2 weeks. What's that? So you mean just literally join the job?
That by the sound of it, yeah, he was. It's that body again. Look.
I know. Yeah, I just wanted to go up again. I think.
Any advice? Just enjoy it. Listen to everyone around you. Find your own way, but you normally find your own way by watching everybody else, and that's as well as the do-dos and the don't-dos. So yeah, just enjoy it.
Yeah, because people say advice, and it's probably it's exactly what you said, Dave. Is just be yourself. Use your own skills, your own character. Don't think you have to be a certain way. It's like being honest out there as well is women don't need to be one of the lads. Women can be women and use their skills. Wash my hands here. And use their skills to actually and the best parts of characters and whatever to be the individuals, and that can be done in firearms and public order and all sorts. So sometimes people are falling into the trap of trying to conform and fit into a group and then become someone they're not, and it doesn't work. If you're an idiot, stop being an idiot. That's the key thing. Oh, Dave's frozen. He's frozen. Dave's moved. Got stopped by police and nothing to worry, just stopping. Yeah, I mean, the key thing is with the taser, I don't understand. There's a lot of defense for people, and then there's some. I can say this, Dave, and you don't need to answer. When you get a special ACC making comments as they were, which was it's not helpful, and somebody, remember, a lot of these people do not know much about or anything about taser, don't know, haven't been on frontline dealing with real threats, and we don't know what was said, we don't know what threats were said, and that side of things. So that's why an investigation is made. More often than not, there's a camera, and when you see that, it puts a whole different. When it could be saying, "You touch me, I'm going to effing kill you," and you got that shouted with spit and all that at you. You realise, right, when I put my hand on that person, they're going to kick off big style, and that's what you need to avoid. Why should I do that? Why should I do? Anyway, I don't need to.
Some people seem to think, I wouldn't imagine it's anybody that's listening to us today, but some commentators seem to think that as a police officer, you need to take that first punch to the face before you react. And we don't have to. There are pieces of legislation that say that we absolutely don't have to do that. So you wouldn't do it, the public, you wouldn't do it. So why do some people expect us?
Reasonable force does not mean little force. Reasonable force could be fatal. Okay, so if somebody is going to kill you or someone near you, and all other methods have either been tried or would have failed, then there is that reasonable force is lethal force. Yeah. So unfortunately, we don't have to use that very often in this country. So that's reasonable force. Reasonable force could also be pushing someone away from someone and saying to calm down. That's reasonable force. So that's why a little bit, when with the COVID thing, and they said you shouldn't leave your house without reasonable excuse. You cannot list every excuse, and that's why it comes to the normal person to decide what is reasonable, and that's why it all went a bit funny.
Yeah. And what's reasonable force to you could be different to your colleague who's 6'8" and goes to the gym 5 times a week, or your colleague who's 5'2" and is 8 stone wet through. So, and then that's why your statement is there. Your statement is there to put how you feel. And I've never been shy about writing in my statements that I was in fear or worried that I was going to be seriously assaulted, or that somebody else was going to be assaulted if I didn't take the actions that I take. And I think provided.
I put in my statement. At this point, I knew I was in trouble.
Yes. I've been there. I've got a dog. I work a high drive dog in Hero, and I did with Finn, that have got 42 teeth and would happily put you in hospital. But not everybody we found got bitten. I think Finn had something like 40 bites, but that's out of 300 criminals. So it gives you some idea. And the people that got bitten, you can believe that was what was necessary at the time.
They always have an option, Dave. They always have an option. They always have an option, don't they?
They do, yeah.
So, somebody's just asked me, Christian, from what's my opinions on IOPC for me now I'm out. Do you know what? It's like everything. You've got some good people in there, but I think, Dave, I think the system is horrendously flawed. It's massively in favour of, I think it's good people, but I think it's very naive people who've never worked in the police. So they're telling me how I should have reacted with my taser. And they haven't a clue what it's like on front line when you have got that in your face. Well, could you perhaps let him, but those are specifics. There is legislation that's come in recently that means the whole process now has to be moved along a lot quicker. So we should hopefully move away from these 6-year investigations, because that was outrageous, absolutely outrageous. And it was well known that we would treat the worst criminal far, far better and give them far more rights than a police officer being investigated. So I think the new IOPC, not a lot of difference from the old IPCC. The legislation this week, in February rather, there's a few improvements, but time will tell to see if they are improvements or not, or whether, because they've got rid of a few things, and they've tried, the overarching thing is to learn from mistakes, not find a scapegoat. And the RAF are good at this, because if RAF were scared that they'd get someone into trouble, so they keep it quiet because they're going to lose their job, then aircraft would fall out of the sky because of a certain problem. So we need that in the police service as well. So what's happening here? Where is the edge here? So, so if they're going to investigate and someone's going to lose their job potentially, when it was not malicious and it wasn't dishonest, then that's a much better way about it. So that's what they're going for. So let's see. Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah, it's a good point you just made, actually, about honesty. Honesty is a cornerstone, really, of what we do. And normally, when police officers get into trouble, and of course you can have public hearings these days, it is because they've made a mistake, and rather than just say, I made a mistake, they then try and hide it. And that's not good. I've made mistakes, believe it or not.
I don't believe it.
I've made mistakes. But I said,
I say on here.
I made a mistake. We once chased a guy and detained him by Finn biting him, not me biting him, and actually he'd done nothing wrong. But this was the job. I should have given you the job first. The job was, and this was many years ago, so it's fine. Two young lads round the back of a block of flats, and they're breaking into that flat right now. One's giving the other one a shimmy up to get in the window, and he's passing things out to him. He needs to get here quickly. And we were around the corner, which never happens. We were around the corner, and I parked a little way away so they didn't hear or see the police car. And me and Finn, we walked in with Finn on the lead. And sure enough, when we came around the side of this block of flats, one was shimmying up the side of, being helped up the side of this block of flats to a window by his mate. So I challenged. Someone asked, "Do you have to warn the suspect before you let the dog go?" Yes, you do. So I challenged him. So both of them, and I said that it's on YouTube so you can see it. Police officer, the dog, stand still, or I'll send the dog. And you have to repeat it, and you have to keep repeating it, because if your dog's trained properly, even if you've sent the dog.
Can I just ask? Are you secretly thinking, "Go on, run, go on, run"?
No, definitely not. And
yeah.
And sure enough, they were like the rabbit in the headlights, and they ran. That was their first thought in their brain, was to run. So they ran, and I sent Finn. And as we came around the corner, because they ran around the back of the block of flats, as we came around the corner, the first one decided, you know what? I think he probably said stop for a reason. So he stopped, and Finn did exactly what he's supposed to do. And he ran past him, and he ran after the other one who was still running, and he nailed him. Him. Fighting in the police dog world. And so he took hold of his arm and he brought him to the ground, and that was it. They were both nicked for burglary. So that was the information we had. I should have given you the story first. I'm fairly sure if anybody who's listening to us had come around the side of the building and saw two guys as described, possibly by the look of what you can see, burgling a house, you're going to detain them in whatever way is suitable, and sending the dog was one of the ways. When we looked into it, there were two young lads who were messing around the back of a block of flats, and they'd managed to find some weed or get some weed from a friend, and they were having a cheeky little joint. And of course, when they saw us, they absolutely pooed themselves and ran. And and they'd done nothing wrong. So he got bitten having had done nothing wrong. But with the information we had at the time, our response was proportionate. Now, what made me laugh was Finn didn't cause him particularly bad injuries because it was winter and he had a thick jacket on.
Yeah.
We took him home, and his dad probably caused him more injuries than because he was devastated that his son had been stopped by the police and had been caught with marijuana and blah, 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 and caused all this furore. And so, yes, you know, but I held my hand up and said that with hindsight, which we don't have when you turn up to a job, that was the correct. I hadn't made a mistake, but with the information I had, that was the correct.
Oh, that's good, because there's nothing that was malicious. There's nothing that was dishonest about it. And so, but you can imagine if some really serious injuries had happened to that person, or worse, then can you imagine the family with a placard saying, you know, murdering copper, my poor, you know, so, you know, well, why did you, you know, and then hindsight is forgotten. But it does remind me when I was in court and you get cops in the witness room and they're all talking about stories. And there was one guy who said he was, he's a dog handler, and he said, so he was doing his track, and it was across fields, and it was crossed through over hedges, and it was brambles and stuff, and the guy was keeping on running and running, and and there were some police officers between him and the subject, and they were running after him, you know, so the guy had this, and they said, and so he shouted, he said, I needed to warn the officers, so I said, stand still or I'll release the dog, right? And the police officers running, they went, shh, like absolutely stationary. And then the dog went straight through the two police officers and then got stuck, caught up in this hedge, right? And the subject themselves, they had also gone once the dog had been released. And so this will be interesting, but the dog was caught up in the hedge. So the dog handler said, as you were. So the police officers ran, having got the dog. They ran towards the offender, and then the offender also took heed of the as you were and ran away. So it was they did get him in the end, I understand, but it was so comical to see. As you were. All right.
Oh my God. I love that. Have you seen that comment there? It's the first time I've been on with Dave and Harry on the Dave and Harry show, and it's just like being in an old forced canteen. That's exactly what we're aiming for. So thanks for that.
There you go. Look, can you ask me one question for this misguided person here? Answer the question, Dave.
Which one? Dave, what's your opinion on, I'm sorry, mint choc chip is the best ice cream?
See.
I absolutely love. If you see me on the street and you want to buy me something, buy me a mint choc chip ice cream. I love it. I'm guessing by that message though that you think it's disgusting.
Yes, Jem thought the world thought it was disgusting, and so she told someone, and they did a poll on Twitter to see, and then she. Look, and do you know what? She secretly said, because I know her very well, she said, Harry, can you retweet it? Because I want to get my numbers up. I said, it's just going to bury you even further. You know that, Jem. And so guess what? So that's why she's still hung up about this. You've got to leave it alone.
She thought I was going to say no, didn't she? Sorry, Jem. Mint choc chip, best ice cream ever invented.
Yeah. So I was told to stand still, yes. So what the COVID? So COVID result on policing generally. I'm not out there anymore. But just before I left on the armed response, we were finding that we were going like Dave, you mentioned it before about going preventative stuff and just going out looking. And because they cancelled some training and stuff, we had more officers on. And so suddenly we had more resources. And that was really one of the reasons why I was able to retire. And they didn't say you've got to stay on, because there wasn't that shortage. And I think they took every opportunity to think, no, he said he's going, let's get rid of him.
Quick.
Let him go. Don't question him.
Save money if we get rid of Harry.
He might never leave. But so there you go, Jem. That's another one for you. But it's yep, you are. So how's Dave? One thing I've often wondered: how is Finn? How old is Finn?
So he's 11. He was 11 at the beginning of April.
So for a big dog, because my little Arthur, he's 10 and he runs around like a little puppy still, but a big dog is different, isn't it? And he has had a working life. He's He's had one of the best lives a dog can ever have because he's stimulated. It's like one big dog walk, basically.
Yeah.
But do you find he's really an old man now, or can he go?
His brain isn't old. No, his brain still thinks he would go back to work tomorrow. He would jump in the back of that police van and he would go back to work tomorrow. And I don't doubt that. Mint Viennetta, yummy. I don't doubt that he would catch a burglar probably in his first shift or first few shifts.
Yeah,
his body is slowing down a bit. He has worked very hard. He was a police dog for almost 7 years, and I do work very hard. I do. We do go to lots of jobs. We do lots of training, and of course, like it's had that effect on my body, it's had that effect on his body. So if you look, his elbows here, he has got arthritis in his elbows, and we do everything we can to try and stave it off. And he has what's it called, U-Move, which is a great product. In his dinner, he has turmeric, which is great, and apparently I should be taking turmeric too.
Is that for what? Is that for virility then, Dave?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's what I think. That's really useful when you've been married for how long? We've been married. When you've been married for 16 years and you've got 3 kids, that really useful. So moving on swiftly. He's got the knocks and niggles. He had a knee operation when he was 4. So what we try and do is try and keep him nice and strong and all his muscles nice and toned, because that will hopefully help to stave off some of the other things. So somebody wants me to give Finn a hug. Yeah,
this isn't what was it, the something Gus Honeybun. We used to phone in and ask for the bunny to hop up and down or to wink. The Southwest. It's a little toy thing, little puppet thing they used to do, and people could write in and ask for you to. So, Dave, that's your new job. So, can you hug Finn for me? And it was dedicated to your birthday. I'm hugging. I'm just rambling on now. But it just brought back memories of that. Well, there you go.
No, Mark. No, I was Finn's only handler. He had a foster home before me, whose job was to take him everywhere. But no, I was his only handler. Police dogs in the UK, they only have one handler. It's not like the military, who can sometimes have several handlers. Normally, touch wood, the dog stays with you for their entire career. And most, but not all, dog handlers keep their dogs in retirement.
No. Right. Yes, that's true. Because the thing is, you could have quite a few dogs in your whole working life, can't you, Dave? Have you gone quiet? Because until
actually, if you think about all the puppies we've had. Oh, hello.
You went off for about. Well, for me, you went off for about 5 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
The kids are probably on the internet. So if you include all the puppies and dogs that I've developed, then I don't know. We've probably had about 8 dogs. But Hero is my 3rd operational dog. I'm an instructor as well, so I've instructed lots of people and their dogs, and I do private dog training as well. So again, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dogs.
Thank you, Karen. So she's saying you're doing a very good job and all that. I've done mine. Dave's now earning my pension for me, so that's good. Although I've never been so busy actually since leaving, but which is a common thing for cops who have done their 30 years. So they say retirement, but it's to do a different job, isn't it? Did you notice we phoned each other this morning to see what we were wearing, Dave and I? So just check. Yeah. Oh, look at you. He is cool. He is the most beautiful guy. I've had him around here. He's come around to my house as well. And it's a real privilege. He's such a lovely guy. And what I wanted to do as well is, because I just wanted very quickly, first of all, Mike Pannett is a big friend of ours. And if you're still looking for books, whilst looking at that beautiful scene, if you're still looking at books for lockdown and whatever, though it's not quite so much lockdown now, but is Mike Pannett's. He's got a series of books, and you really will love those. But this is a very good friend of mine, and that was a cracking one. He was a sergeant on the Scilly Isles He's a top guy, Colin Taylor. Infamous for his Facebook accounts of investigating the break-in of a wooden shed where a fried egg was left at the scene. That is the truth. Google it. You'll see it. Google it.
Fried egg left at the scene.
And there's photo evidence. There was a police officer looking, there was the shed with the padlock broken, and the police officer looking and pointing to this fried egg on the, I think actually Facebooked it. I mean, his Facebook account from the Silly Owls had hundreds of thousands of, it was masses of followers. And that's why a publisher said, come and do that. That is just idyllic. It's just off Cornwall, obviously. Owls of Scilly, should be known as The Sillies, and Colin Taylor. But he's given me a lot of help with my book as well, which is that one there.
It is all go in Devon and Cornwall.
On Amazon. It is all go on Devon and Cornwall. Because I know, I speak to Dave and he's like, oh yeah, we've done all these, nicked 3 murderers last couple of weeks ago, and just 600 grand's worth of money was recovered in the back of a panel from your other dog and drugs. And I'm like, However, we our guys tend to be very busy with serious and fatal road traffic collisions, which have improved a lot because there's less people on the roads and things. So that's really good. And to be honest, they are very full as well. Mental health, domestics, that side of things is just big everywhere, unfortunately. But COVID has cut a lot of those rush calls that shouldn't be. Why are you calling the police? But it's a bit like when you watch these 999 these A&E shows, isn't it? I always wonder why that mother's sitting with her son who's got a little pain in their knee. What are you doing in A&E? So we need to start learning to say, sorry, you need to go. But then 1 in a million drops down dead, and that's it then, isn't it? That person's going to be pulled through the car.
They'll be in trouble,
Drop down dead with an injured knee. But but what you're doing now, you're retired. So that's mine. I wrote a book which I thought was going to be it was just a bit of a memoir really for my kids. I wasn't going to publish it even. And then an adult read it and said, it's pretty good, you should publish it. And so I think I've pretty much sold about 4,000 books at the moment.
Harry and I are taking this show onto ITV primetime TV. So watch this space. This week, it can be done.
yeah, just ply us with alcohol. It'll be better then, even better. Dave won't mind being working then. See, I have this freedom. I can talk about, and Dave's got to still act like an adult sometimes. Well, it's very important that people air their grievances with the police service, however silly we think they may be. But I can say, just stop it. Stop complaining about anything. If you're complaining about the silly things, rather, then your life is obviously not fulfilled enough. You need real things to moan about. Oh, right, there we go. Because I think people M25, it's like a normal day this morning. I go to the post office occasionally, bought some eggs this morning, and I walk the dog, and that's it. I'm quite happy, but then I'm in a reasonable place in Devon where everything's beautiful and the sun always shines. So
the parks were definitely pretty full today, and the car parks in the parks, which I think the government has said you can go and do now, but you just got to make sure that distancing still happens. One point actually to make is obviously we've seen a massive drop off on things like domestic burglaries, and if you are going to go out, which of course you're allowed to now, just make sure you lock up, because there will be opportunists out there. And of course we've all relaxed because we've been at home and we've left our windows open. If you're going to go out, don't take a risk, and make sure you do lock up behind you. Otherwise you'll create more work for me and Hero, and we'll come and get some burglars out of bushes.
Good point made by Lauren there. Mental health side of things, I think that's raised. Things like domestic issues, there's nothing worse. And I tell you what, even in the On Response, we used to deal with someone who, this guy was living with his elderly parents, and found that he'd taken over. Was it his grandparents? Yeah, he was living with his grandparents, and he was a horrible bloke. And he'd taken over their finances and everything. And he'd gone off, and he put on Facebook that with this this big crossbow, and he'd gone off and he'd threatened somebody. And so we tracked him down in the end, and we did. He was in a taxi. So we went nose on with the taxi, and he was asked politely to leave the vehicle, where he was nice and leisurely and gently handcuffed. But we did him for controlling coercive behaviour. And it's part of the Serious Offences Act, and it's legislation we can use where, from the outside, you think, well, he hasn't assaulted anyone. He hasn't actually done anything physical. There's no threats. Before we can do anything. Now, if it's clear that they are manipulating someone and using controlling and coercive behaviour, Serious Offences Act, not the Offences Act, but the Serious Offences. So it's really useful. So we did quite a few. We did a handful on that in the end, when there was no specific offences that we had otherwise. But that was good, and that really gave a gap. It meant that he didn't go back to the grandparents' house, weren't start off where he left off, because we didn't have any control. But when they go through the court system, then they can put in these orders. So that's where it was really useful. Somebody says loving the isolation. Me fine, but then
Jane, that's me as well. I'm a bit of an antisocial bugger. So actually, not much has changed in my life. So what it means is when I took my dog for a walk, it was nice and quiet out there. So I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
We've got 4 minutes left before we go. Thank you so much for everyone joining.
Someone asked what my favourite job was. Maybe that's something you and I could do, Harry. One week we could talk through our favourite jobs. So I can do that. What else was I going to say? Something else. Slightly different time next week, isn't it? There we go. 4 p.m. on a Friday next week. Hopefully not. You won't all be back at work, and you can come and join us.
That is our hashtag. So Fin and Firearms, if you look for it on Twitter or other issues, and on the podcast, if you look at podcasts, if you haven't been able to watch this or listen to it, go into Spotify or whatever your podcast is and search under Fin and Firearms. I forget now if it's a single word or it's probably 3 little words, or come up with either, I would have thought. But anyway, yeah.
Couple of things. Mike Panic's joined us. Hi, Mike. Yeah, I shall be having a beer in a minute. A quick mention about Finn's Law Part 2. Yet again, Finn's Law Part 2 has been pushed back, and it's now, the second reading is in September. Please, everybody, contact your MP. Tell them to find out from the government what's going on, and make sure that your MP's inbox is full of Finn's Law Part 2.
Yeah, good. Okay, and that's how you can follow me. I've got the most complicated surname in the world. It's actually pronounced Tangy with a hard G, as in tangy sauce, sort of thing. I remember I was in Dawlish. You know when the Tango orange came out, people were slapping people and they were bursting eardrums and stuff. And all the little yobbies I'd rather go Tango, and I thought, no, I'm happy with that. I
think we should change it to Harry Mint Chop Chip after this week.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to get something.
We can have guests on here. So if there's anybody can think of about guest-wise that they would like on here, then let us know. We can have some guests over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, good. That's a very good point. So we are a couple of minutes late, but that's a very good point. Yeah, so it'd be quite interesting to bring someone into the conversation. And then you've got armed response traffic X, you've got dog handler, and with all the varieties within dog handling that you've got with Dave, and then we get a guest in that actually speaks with theirs, and that'd be quite good. We'll get someone in from the IOPC, shall we? Oh, we better give them loads of beer first, though. We've got to make them fun. No, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble now. I met one.
I can't hear you. La 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 la
la. I did it. I met one of the IOPC, and I say this is why I think they were very nice, and I think that's why because they often listen to the one side. They don't liaise with the police officers because they like to be independent, but they certainly liaise with the families, and so they get one-sided information, and that's the problem with it. And I think it was a little bit naivety, really, but that was the problem. But otherwise, very nice person, and I thought, well, you're not helping. I'd love to have hated her, but she was very nice. But there we go. What are we at? That's 5:30. It's been emotional. That's a good one.
Blimey. Not all of you went out, or you went out and you put the phone on in the background. So thank you ever so much for joining us. And we'll see you next Friday.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.